There are 40 obstructive impurities on the path of grace, which are the main ones out of many. When they are renounced, fruition of the path of grace is perfected. They are now listed. The first major contamination is pride of wealth, which blinds the embodied souls, for they can then count none as their equal. If you have wealth, you should offer it up to the Lord and use it to serve him, whereby you become his servant. The second obstruction is the worldly home. When you think you have put it together, or that it belonged to your father, this is the sense of possession that is the problem. The third is attachment to said home, being attached to the many household duties all the time, counting what must be done from day to day. The fourth is the desire for worldly and religious fame. Here you may plan to become famous through certain deeds. If your competitor does 5 such deeds, you will plan to outdo him with 10. You may also seek fame through the performance of religious acts such as ancestor worship, marriage, or sacrifices, displaying how much you do and seeking fame thereby. The fifth is to place your belief in and solicit reward from good deeds, daily prayer rituals, worshipping the deceased, fasts and regular disciplines, etc., etc. The sixth is to desire to go to heaven through such acts and hoping to enjoy many pleasures there. These are all obstacles to the true fruit of the path of grace. Verse 3. Excessive worldly affection, desires that are contrary to devotion, attachment to worldly affairs, and enjoying good food for the sake of sensual pleasure. These are all obstacles. Dika. The seventh obstacle to devotion is having excessive affection for worldly relationships such as wife and children, holding theirs as the highest type of love. The eighth obstacle which blocks the fruition of the devotional path is hankering after worldly sensual enjoyment. The ninth is attachment to such worldly affairs. The 10th is always wanting to eat very fine foodstuffs. Vaishnava devotees make fine food preparations solely to serve the Lord, and they appreciate that food when partaken as the Lord's grace. But demanding lots of ghee-laced food for the sake of sensual pleasure is a great obstruction on the path of devotion. Verse 4. Pride in your body. Pride in your family clan, pride in your knowledge and nourishing your body without making service to the Lord. Tika. The 11th obstacle is devotion is obsessive pride in the body and constant tending to appearance, always brushing the hair, looking in the mirror with self-praise. The 12th is pride in the family, considering one's birth to be very high and that everyone else is inferior. The 13th is thinking oneself to be very knowledgeable and well-read and regarding everyone else to be fools. This attitude totally blocks humility. The 14th is occupying one's day in endless worldly and scriptural duties, not performing one's service to the Lord or even wanting to do so. Like when a so-called Brahmin fails to recite his Gayatri mantra, then his Brahminhood recedes. In the same way, if a Vaishnava does not perform service to the Lord, then that state of being a Vaishnava is reneged, and this is a huge obstacle on the path to devotion. The 15th is when one obsesses over the nourishment and health of the body. There is not even a trace of tolerance of heat and cold, and endless efforts are made to keep the body safe through the use of medicines and potions, only for the sake of worldly activity, without any awareness at all that the body should be properly maintained simply for the purpose of being able to serve the Lord. Verse 5. Remaining enduringly corrupted through bad association, partaking of foodstuffs that have not first been offered to the Lord Sri Krishna, failing to inquire into the meaning of one's mantra of dedication, and forgetting to surrender are all obstacles on this path of devotion. Tika 5. The 16th is keeping the company of immoral people who have turned their face away from the Lord. A moment of this kind of association can totally defile your love for the Lord. A lot of it will turn you away from the Lord. The 17th is neglecting to partake of the food offerings made to the Lord and instead to eat what has not been offered. It is written in the Padma Purana, if you eat without first offering to the Lord, your forefathers will all suffer in hell for many years. Food prepared by non-devotees and sinners and which is not offered to the Lord is equal to dog meat. In the Kurma Purana it is stated, eating that which is not first offered to the Lord Sri Govinda and without any moral consideration is like eating dog feces, and drinking water in the same way is like drinking alcohol. Eating unoffered food is a huge obstacle because it destroys the intelligence. The 18th obstacle to devotion is not bothering to understand the self-dedication one has made. You know you have dedicated yourself to the Lord, but if you do not investigate and thus try to truly grasp the concept, for example, of the 5th syllable prayer of surrender, then this is an example of the 5 syllable prayer of surrender, then this is a hindrance in your devotion. The 19th is forgetting your self-surrender, that you have taken shelter in Sri Krishna, especially when you forget the 8-syllable prayer that embodies this surrender. Verse 6. Resorting to and praying to other gods or goddesses to attain a worldly reward and engaging in worldly gainful employment without even a thought for the Lord, all lead to forgetting him. Tika. The 20th obstacle on this path of devotion is resorting to other deities. Sri Krishna is the fullest manifestation of Godhead. You will never attain the rewards of the path of grace if you leave him and approach another lesser deity. In the Harita Smriti treatise, the instruction is, do not bow to any other deity, neither have their sight, partake of their food offerings, nor go to their temple. If you remain in this state of one-pointed exclusive devotion, then you will reach the perfect fruition of this path of grace. Sri Gosaiji has stated, you should serve the dust of the Lord's lotus feet until the day you die. Whatever kind of difficulties you face, never take shelter in any other. One who rides an elephant would not start riding a donkey. Taking refuge in other deities is putting your neck on the block and is a huge hindrance to pure devotion. The 21st is hoping for a result from Indra, Shiva, Brahma, Ganesh, Surya, etc. Sri Krishna is all-powerful, and these others are dependent on him. So why approach them? Such a hope for a reward from them is a great obstruction to the fruit of the path of grace. The 22nd obstruction is to be unattached to the Lord's lotus feet, attached to worldly and scriptural activities, to doubt the Lord's capabilities, to foster perverse thoughts, and to contemplate false and untrue concepts, are all obstructions in the path of devotion. The 23rd obstacle to devotion is to spend one's whole life earning a living whilst functioning from a completely mundane attitude. Verse 7. Other obstacles on this path of devotion which make you forget the Lord are opposing your guru, thinking yourself superior to the accomplished devotees of the path of grace, considering your body to be very powerful, and being too focused on the nourishment of your senses. Tika. The 24th obstacle is opposing your guru until he is displeased with you. If you displease the Lord, then your guru can intervene for you, but if you displease the guru, no one can help you. The 25th is thinking yourself superior to accomplished devotees of the path of grace. The 26th is considering your body to be very powerful and everyone else to be weaker than you. This leads to an inflated ego and addiction to self-enjoyment, to sense enjoyment, an addiction to sense enjoyment. The 27th is to always be ready to nourish your senses. The senses are very attached to mundane enjoyments, and so constantly feeding them can lead to your mind and heart being overtaken and dominated by them. Verse 8. Infatuation with your worldly home, over-attachment to your spouse and children, and resigning in a place devoid of Sri Krishna's service and the singing of his praises, all make you forget the Lord. The 28th factor in forgetting the Lord is constant attachment to your worldly home and the activities therein. The 29th is infatuation with your spouse and children and others whose connection to you is not spiritual, sharing in their joys and sadnesses with over-attachment. The 30th is residence in a place where there are no temples to the Lord or establishments of Sri Vallabhacharyaji's lineage, in both of which you would be able to experience his presence, festivals and service, and meet his true devotees who would share their experiences of Braj, the celebration of his festivals, and the telling of his pastimes. Verse 9. Wallowing in the joy and grief that ensue from worldly gains and losses, thinking oneself to be totally independent, and the embodied soul's tendency to be obstinate, all these make you forget Sri Krishna. 31st is wallowing in the fluctuating joy and grief of this material sphere. When all is well with your friends, family, finances and other undertakings, then you are happy. The tree of this material sphere has two types of fruit. One is joy and one is grief. If you wallow in their fluctuations, this is a great hindrance to the attainment of any spiritual reward. The 32nd is total mental involvement in the greed of acquiring wealth. After getting some riches, one greedily contemplates how nice it would be to get some more, or how lovely it would be to have a bigger family, and it is this greed that is the obstacle to the path of grace. The 33rd is considering oneself to be independent and self-made, forgetting your servitude to the Lord. The 34th is to allow oneself to be a typically tainted, embodied soul and wish misfortune to all others. Verse 10. Considering oneself qualified, enjoying sinful activities, siding with mean-minded people, cruel-heartedness, disregarding the humble, and lack of forgiveness. All of these make you forget the Lord. Tika 10. The 35th obstacle on the path of devotion is considering yourself to be qualified and in charge, because then you have control over the good and the bad that befall many people. Sri Acharyaji has written in both the Sri Subodhini and the Sri Tattvartha Nibandha about how Lord Narayan taught the Srimad Bhagavatam to the creator Brahma. Brahma had been assigned the duty of creation and was prideful of being in charge of it, so he was therefore unable to comprehend the text. He then taught it to Naraji, but Naraji could not grasp its essence, because his position is to wander around all over the three worlds, and thus his mind is not singularly focused. Naraji recounted it to Sri Vedvyas, but Vedvyasji was prideful because of his command over the Vedas and the Purana, and so was not able to experience its inner meaning. Vedvyasji then told it to Sri Sukadevji, who did not have pride of eligibility, and thus did experience its inner essence. This is why it is said that if you are proud of your qualification and eligibility, this is a hindrance to the revelation of the true devotional reward. The 36th is when an embodied soul becomes attached to sinful types of activity and hence has no longer any idea of what is favourable or unfavourable for it. The 37th is when that soul then sides with liars and thieves, whereby they turn truth into lie and lie into truth. 38th is when the heart becomes cruel with no sympathy for anyone and very cunning and hypocritical. The 39th is rejecting those meek souls who come to you in good faith. The 40th obstacle to the devotional reward is total lack of forgiveness and the unreasonable anger when your brow is raised and you have no tolerance. Verse 11. There are many others apart from those listed above, all of which make you forget Sri Hari. Those souls who are in a position of his servant should be very respectfully aware and careful of them. Apart from these 40 faults listed, there are many others, but these are the most common contributors to forgetfulness of Sri Krishna. If you embody such faults, you cannot expect to understand the Lord. Therefore, Sri Hari Rai is stating them very clearly here and advising all Vaishnava devotees to carefully avoid them. Now he lists 9 qualities the embodied soul must cultivate in order to annihilate the faults. The first is to always and at all times to have the deepest respect for Sri Krishna's lotus feet, and to know this to be the all and end all. So that concludes Tika 11, and we will continue with number 12 tomorrow. Aaj ke Anand ki jai ho. Jai Shri Krishna sab Vaishnavan ko Anand se, prem se, denya se, आदर से। श्री श्री रास विहारिणी जी की जय 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 श्री राधे।